Now, China is leagues ahead of Europe in terms of technology. Yeah. Really, the technology in China is just kind of next level.
Yeah, I think the modern aspect of China is just awesome. Like the cities are just top notch. You know, we've not been to any cities like we have in China.
The only other place would probably be Japan or maybe Korea, but China has just got so many good cities because the technology is just amazing over there.
And we absolutely loved it. It far exceeded our expectations, but we definitely want to go back.
When we first arrived into China, we expected what Western media often portrays: crowded cities, strict rules, and a culture that felt worlds away. And while some of the stereotypes hold some truth, what we discovered after stepping foot in China was amazing. The culture is fascinating and the architecture was impressive. The people were friendly and eager to help despite having a language barrier. And finally, the cost of travelling around China is what shocked us the most. From jaw-dropping natural scenery to bustling megacities, China genuinely has it all, and our perceptions of this country have changed dramatically ever since we arrived into what is now one of our favourite countries. These are our first impressions after visiting China. Hi, we're Sarah and Callum, and we recently got back from a month-long trip in China, and it turned out to be one of our favourite countries. So in this travel vlog, we're going to be talking about our first impressions of China.
So China wasn't actually somewhere that we were initially planning to go on our trip at all.
So we did a year-long trip. Well, it was over a year. It was about a year and a half trip around the world. And China was not one of the destinations we wanted to travel to. However, we did go to Malaysia, didn't we? And we was wandering around a temple in Malaysia, and it was a Chinese temple. And we kind of fell in love with Chinese architecture.
Yeah, I think the more sort of travelling we did, and we could sort of see bits of Chinese influence in other countries that we were travelling to, and it was starting to become on our radar a little bit, and the more we looked into China, the more we saw how much it had to offer. So although it was never really on the top of our sort of list of places to go, or even really on our bucket list, it then, as we travelled more,
quickly became
it did.
Towards the top of the list. And then we basically looked at how we could get a Chinese visa, because that's always the problem. We managed to get a Chinese visa in Vietnam. So we might do another video about that if anybody's interested, because actually you can usually only get a Chinese visa from your home country. But Vietnam and Laos do offer you visas. So for us, that worked really well, because obviously China's right next to Vietnam. And we thought, okay, right, we've had all these signs pointing us towards China, and now we can get a visa. Yep. So let's just go for it.
Yeah,
so,
perfect opportunity to go.
With that, we got our visa and we thought, okay, we're heading to China. We knew nothing about what to expect, and everything that we did think to expect was not the opposite. Some things were true. Not everything was true, what kind of the Western media portrays. So let's go into what our first impressions of China was like. And we're going to start with the cost. The cost of China really, really, really surprised us. We thought it would be expensive.
Yeah, I think you don't really know, like we said, we didn't really know what to expect going in, but we'd budgeted much more money than we actually ended up spending in the end. And that really was down to the fact that sort of the local transport, the local food, things from shops and everything was much cheaper than we was expecting.
The taxis, for example, in China, for like a 40-minute to an hour's journey, you're paying less than £10, which is crazy. It's a little bit more expensive than Southeast Asia in some aspects. The capital city, Beijing, that is a lot more expensive than Southeast Asia. But as you kind of get out into other little areas of China, so for example, we visited an ancient city called Pingyao. Now, we thought that would be really expensive because it's a really beautiful destination, and we stayed within the walls of the ancient city. And what did we end up paying per night?
I think it was something really stupid, like £10 a night. And it was basic accommodation, but, you know, it was a private room, it had an ensuite bathroom. It
Aircon.
was literally within the walls of an ancient city, which in any other country I feel like you would pay through the roof for.
You would pay crazy money for that.
Yeah, that was such a cool experience.
So that was like the accommodation's cheap, the transport's cheap with the taxis and things, and then the attractions. A lot of the major attractions are like £2 or £3 to get in, and we used trip.com to book everything, and then you get trip coins back, which made it even cheaper.
So I think actually with trip.com, we found that while we're in China, and it's been a little bit of a lifesaver for us, especially with the language barrier, because you can obviously go up and book things on the day, you turn up and you get to the gate. But the thing is, it can be so busy, and also depending on where you're going, things can really get booked up in advance. So you kind of want to have a platform that you can book those main things that you really want to see in advance. So that's why we really like Trip.com. We found that a really easy platform to book things through. There was no language barrier. It was pretty much the same price, I think, as well.
It really made travel in China very, very easy, which is why, obviously, our first impressions of China are so good, because that was one of the big things that we thought we'd stumble across, is the difficulties of travel in China. That's what we were really worried about.
We were concerned, I think, about the language barrier, and we didn't know how anything worked and what systems would be in place, and so we were apprehensive going in, is this going to be really hard? But actually, we were very pleasantly surprised.
Very surprised, which kind of brings us on to our next topic, which is the people. A lot of the stereotypes that you hear about Chinese people are not true. Some of them do hold some truth. So, for example, it is very, very busy. That is something that you really have to get used to.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in China. So naturally, you get a lot of Chinese tourists also visiting the tourist attractions, not just foreigners. So it does get very busy and it can be very crowded. But if you can sort of navigate that and get used to that, then...
Get up early. I think that's one of the big things,
true,
getting up early and getting there before the masses of tourists get there. And then you'll really, really see the beauty of China. But also, in terms of the people, like the subways and things, they are busy. But do you know what? Like, everybody's really, really friendly.
Yeah. Everyone was lovely, weren't they?
They're lovely. And if you do notice a language barrier, then they'll try and go out their way to help you, even though there's a language barrier, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And then if you have anybody who speaks English, they just want to talk to you and they want to help you. So, for example, we was in a restaurant and we got a menu and we had no idea what we was ordering. We used Google Translate, and even Google Translate wasn't telling us the right things.
It was very complicated, very confusing, and we definitely needed some help in that situation. And we had the most lovely girl come over.
Yeah.
And she knew some English, not loads, but she was so happy to try and help, and she was trying to translate between things to try and explain the menu for us. And she didn't have to do that. And we found that quite a lot in China, that people, if they had a bit of English, they were more than willing to try and go out of their way to help.
To really help you. And then likewise, you get a lot of younger children coming over and speaking to you because they're learning English. So they want to speak to you and they want to kind of, they get their parents to take a photo and stuff. So it's actually really sweet. We've been to other countries before where it can be a bit overwhelming, but here in China, it wasn't overwhelming. It was just from a nice perspective. So in terms of the people, absolutely amazing. We really, really enjoyed it. You just need to get used to how busy things are.
Yeah.
Another thing we wanted to talk about in terms of China was the food. Now, it wouldn't be right if we kind of didn't talk about the food here. The food is so good and so varied. One thing we didn't realise, well, we did know this about China, but you don't kind of see it until you're there. It's that each region has such different dishes.
Yeah, that's so true. And they really vary. So you can be in a province that's like really famous for spicy food, and the one next to it is really not.
Yeah.
So it really does depend where you are as to what's available or what's the speciality in that area, really.
So if you're really into food, then you probably want to kind of research the top dishes for each province. It's almost like going into a whole new country food-wise for each province you go to. Food is very, very cheap, very affordable, and there's lots of restaurants. You can go and get street food. That's quite common.
I think there's just lots of different options, so you can really sort of do it based on your budget. So if you've not got a huge budget for food or for a China trip in general, you can find those cheaper options, or you can go and spend a lot in a restaurant. So it really just depends. But I mean, saying that, we did eat in quite a few restaurants, and we didn't spend an awful lot. So
no, not an awful lot of money. One of the things we did was we got a big roast duck, for example, and a full roast duck in the UK. That would cost you probably £35-40 for a full roast duck. China, it was more £17-18. So like the value for what you're getting is absolutely amazing. Next, we wanted to talk about the technology. Now, China is leagues ahead of Europe in terms of technology.
Yeah.
It's something that absolutely shocked us. So, for example, we went to a train station and the train stations are crazy. So, like, we describe the train stations like airport size.
Especially in the bigger cities.
Oh, my word. Like, Beijing, the train station there, it was huge, like absolutely massive. And that's like one of 4 or 5 train stations, and they're all massive. So kind of the technology there is amazing though, because for example, you go into a train station, you can scan your passport. No, it's not even your passport, is it? Your passport's already scanned. So basically, you use your passport to get into all of the train stations. Everything's done on passport. But then you can go up to like this screen and you can kind of get it to scan your face. And then once it scans your face, it tells you where you need to go in the train station. It was like amazing. And that's just one thing.
Yeah, and we found that with the attractions as well. So, for example, we went and saw the floating mountains. And on the first day, we showed our ticket, which is everything's QR codes, by the way. So, which is, again, you know, just shows how advanced, I guess, technology is over there, because you pay for food with QR codes, you pay everything you can think of.
Nothing is cash.
Everything's cashless, everything's just through your phone, through apps on your phone. So that's amazing. And that, again, helps with the language barrier, really.
It really does.
But going back to the floating mountains, on the first day, we scanned our QR code as the ticket to get in. And the second, third, fourth day, we just literally walked in with our face.
Just
it's
our
face
faces.
recognition.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all of that element. And that's literally just a tourist attraction. So it's pretty cool.
In a lot of the attractions, they tend to do light shows and things as well, which just make the attraction even better. So, for example, we was in the ancient city, and along the walls of the ancient city, they projected this amazing light show all across the walls, where like we've never really been anywhere else in the world where they do that, or they do it as good as China does it. They take it to a whole new level. There's like drones, there's everything. So really the technology in China is just kind of next level.
Yeah, I think the modern aspect of China is just awesome. Like the cities are just top notch. You know, we've not been to any cities like we have in China.
Yeah, all of them as well. Like Guangzhou was amazing, Chengdu was amazing, Xi'an was amazing. They're all amazing cities. Like you will not find cities anywhere else in the world. The only other place would probably be Japan, or maybe Korea, but China has just got so many good cities because the technology is just amazing over there.
So we said at the very beginning that one of the reasons that we wanted to go to China in the first place is sort of the influence we'd seen. So mostly in like the architecture and buildings, and that again when we got to China was, you know, really, really good. We absolutely loved going around all the different tourist attractions and really seeing the sort of ancient architecture of China.
Yeah, especially in places like Beijing and Xi'an. Like obviously the Great Wall, it's called the Great Wall for a reason. It's absolutely amazing. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I did, but then it's not just about the main attractions like that. It's like there's small little temples, and you know, like in the cities, a lot of the cities have the old walls that surround the cities that look absolutely beautiful, and you can just walk along the walls. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
like a lot of attractions like that in Europe and stuff, you're very restricted on what you can do, whereas I feel like in China they're quite open to let you, you know, walk along the walls of the ancient city, and nobody's there, nobody's doing it, which is strange considering how busy other attractions are. Yeah, the architecture is absolutely incredible, but also the nature side of China. The nature side of China absolutely shocked us, and we didn't even see that much of it, which is why we want to go back again to see more of the natural side of China. But places such as the Avatar Floating Mountains, we'll be terrible at pronouncing it. Like Zhangjiajie National Park, that's how we pronounce it, and we realise that's probably wrong.
That's definitely not right, is it? But
definitely not right.
Sort of what we've started calling it, and now we can't get out of saying it, can we?
No, but yeah, Zhangjiajie National Park.
It's out of this world.
Out of this world. Like one of the best national parks that we've both ever been to.
Yeah, and I think that side of China is probably something that people haven't thought about as much, and we certainly hadn't, and that really surprised us. And I suppose it's such a huge country, that it really is quite diverse, and depending on almost what province you're in, really depends on what sort of side of China and nature and everything that you see as well. So I think we've done a whole month in China, and we absolutely loved it. It far exceeded our expectations, but we definitely want to go back.
We've not even scratched the surface of China. Like we've done a lot of the major highlights, and there's still another million major highlights for us to see what it feels like. So we've not even scratched the surface, and the natural side of things there, just absolutely beautiful. So yeah, if you want to go China, then I would say to try and add some of the natural side of China in there, and not just visit all the cities, as incredible as they are. Our first impressions of China really changed our perspective, and that's why we can't wait to share even more of our experiences from this country. In our upcoming China series, we'll be sharing all of the travel tips you need to know to enjoy China just as much as we did.
So if you enjoyed this video, then please hit that subscribe button and like this video and follow along to see more of our adventures around China.